Hello and welcome back to another episode of Finn's Chats. In today's video, there is no UFC card this weekend, therefore I can't make a predictions video, therefore I can't make a betting video. The only type of video I can make is a video that's going to look into the future, and in this video, we're going to be looking at fights that the UFC have booked already that'll make you say, oh sh**, or will make you say, why do I watch this sport? So we're going to look at both ends of the spectrum. Hunter Campbell, you're being held very accountable in this video, as well as Sean Shelby, as well as Dana White. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Without further ado, let's get right into the video. Here's 5 fights booked that'll make you say, oh sh**. So, the first fight that I saw, I went on Marcel Dorf's Twitter. Everyone knows that guy is the GOAT of MMA Twitter, really, when it comes to fight announcements. And the first fight I saw was Yair Rodriguez taking on Diego Lopez. They will be clashing at UFC Mexico City. This is a striker's delight. I do think that Diego Lopez will defeat Yair Rodriguez. He does have more ways to win. Obviously, he has a submission threat. But overall, whenever Diego Lopez fight gets announced, it should be a banger. And against Yair Rodriguez, someone that's also technically sound with his striking, someone that has a wide array of kicks and strikes, this should be a banger. Thank you, Hunter Campbell, for this one. Next fight I saw was Leon Edwards taking on Jack Della Maddalena at UFC London on March 22nd. I feel like not enough people are talking about this slept-on banger. This is going to be basically a #1 contendership fight to see who fights the winner of Belal and Shavkat. I'm sure Ian Gary has fallen down the totem pole a little bit, but in this one specifically, for the match itself, should be a striker's delight. I don't really envision either guy shooting for a takedown or trying to grapple. Jack Della Maddalena has shown in his UFC run that he can knock out basically any opponent that gets put in front of him in the octagon. He nearly knocked out Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland doesn't really get chinned nowadays. He more gets submitted, and he almost got KO'd by JDM. Leon Edwards, he could be on the decline of his career. You know, his last fight against Belal, very lackluster. His performance against Kobe before that, even though he won, pretty lackluster. Should be a banger matchup to see if Jack Della Maddalena is for real in the welterweight division. The next fight I saw was at UFC 313. It's the main event. Alex Pereira taking on Magomed Ankalaev. And, you know, Pereira has been training his grappling and wrestling lately. You know, you see a lot of tape coming out from his Instagram and Twitter about that. And everyone thinks that in this matchup, the only way Magomed could win is if he shoots for takedowns. However, I don't think that's completely the case. Magomed hasn't really been chinned in his career thus far. He has been KOing people lately in the fights that he's been in. Granted, he did go to a split draw with Blachowicz, and that's putting a stain on his career ever since then. He had that clash with Jan Cutelaba where Cutelaba got knocked out. They called the fight off. He had to rematch him. He had that fight against Paul Craig where he got triangled with 1 second to go. Overall, his career to this belt has been a little shaky. But now that it's here, this is the matchup that needed to be made. This is the matchup that is made for the light heavyweight title. I do think that Pereira just has plot armor. I just don't think he's everyone. In theory, he should be like a plus 200 because Magomed has wrestling, Dagestani, but the aura of Pereira at this current moment, the Chama, I just can't go against it. I'll probably be picking Alex Pereira in this one. Next fight I saw was also at UFC 313. It is the co-main event, Justin Gaethje taking on Dan Hooker, and I feel like this matchup was just a matter of time before being made. You know, you got Justin Gaethje, you got Poirier, you got Max Holloway, and you got Dan Hooker. Like, if you put any combination of those 4 people in the octagon, as well as Michael Chandler, and as well as Charles Oliveira. So if you put any combination of those 6 people in the octagon, you will get an epic clash, an epic striking battle, an epic match that will be etched in UFC history. And now we have another one to add. Justin Gaethje versus Dan Hooker. This is going to be a striking match, striking warfare, striking masterclass. I think, in theory, Gaethje should win. But at this point, he's taken so much damage, as has Dan Hooker. But Dan Hooker, lately, he's been eating the damage a lot cleaner. Gaethje, it seems like he's still one shot and he goes to a knee, you know? So I think I'll be leaning Gaethje, but by the time the fight rolls around, I wouldn't be surprised if I suddenly picked Dan Hooker. And then the last fight I wanted to discuss was Rinat Fakhretdinov taking on Gabriel Bonfim. It's happening at a random fight night in a couple weeks in Vegas, and this is another matchup where it just makes sense, you know. Nicholas Dalby fought both of these guys. He didn't beat both of them. He only beat one of them, but he basically beat Rinat. Everybody thinks that. And now they're fighting each other. The cardio-less kings, I like to call them. The guys who shoot takedowns relentlessly, and if it gets to round 3, 3 significant strikes are landed by both guys. So, like, this matchup is going to be a banger in terms of, like, prospect, which one we're going to see elevate themselves. But if we're going to see it play out, I actually don't think it's going to be a good fight. But in theory, it is a banger. And then that brings us to 5 fights booked that will make you question why you even watched the UFC. So we just went over the highlights, the high moments of the booking for UFC 2025. Now we're going to go into some low moments. You know, this is probably the part of the video that you guys wanted to see more. So let's get into 5 fights booked that will make you question why you watched UFC. First fight is Bannon taking on Pogues Tomar. As you can see, this is the women's MMA fight of all time. Like, this, not the best, it's the. Like, if you're gonna describe women's MMA in a nutshell to a casual, you will tell them March 22nd, you need to watch Bannon versus Pogues Tomar. This is a prime example of 2 women who aren't really finishers. 2 women who don't really have a lot of punching power, 2 women who don't really have a lot of submission threats, and the UFC has matched them up against each other, and it should be an epic clash. I'm actually excited to see this. The level of MMA is so low in this matchup that I'm actually like, what's going to happen? Like, is someone going to find a finish? Or is it just going to be 3 rounds of clinching against the cage? We don't know. That's why we tune into fights like this. That's why it'll make a question. Next fight that'll make a question is Valter taking on Dontale in the heavyweight fight of all time. We just went over the WMMA fight of all time. This is the heavyweight. So if you were to say to someone, hey, heavyweight UFC is kind of mid, the reason behind that is because most of the people that fight at heavyweight are just, you know, overweight people that don't feel like cutting down. They're not really high skilled. They just try to, you know, blast them with a punch. And then the other person would be like, what? The UFC's heavyweight division stinks? That can't be the case. They're heavyweights. They're the best in the world. And then you'd be like, well, February 15th, tune in to UFC Fight Night 251 to watch Valter take on Dontale. And this fight will tell you everything you need to know about the state of the UFC's heavyweight division. It's not that bad. Like, this matchup in particular, I could have chosen a worse one. But this one, I mean, Valter does have some potential. Dontale, none. So, well, let's get into the next one, and you'll see what I'm talking about. We just went over the heavyweight fight of all time. I feel like this is actually the one right here. So, in the last one, you could make the argument that Valter has top 15 potential. Dontale maybe has a couple good UFC wins. This matchup, you can't make the case for any of that. It's Hamdi Abdelwahab taking on Jamal Pogues. I'm pretty sure maybe they have 1 UFC win combined. And I'm pretty sure maybe they have 0 UFC finishes combined. These guys are going to go out there very sloppily. They're very big for the weight class, but that doesn't mean like out of choice. They're just huge beings with low muscle mass, if that makes sense. And this fight taking place in Saudi Arabia, where we know it's going to be hot. We know the cardio gas tanks will deplete in Saudi Arabia quicker than most places. And they decided to put Jamal Pogues there. And this is happening in like 2 weeks. So this should be a fight. The next fight I wanted to discuss, well, not really wanted to discuss, it kind of makes me disgusted. UFC Mexico City, Ateba Gautier taking on Jose Medina. Now, Ateba Gautier, he's only had 1 fight so far. It's a Dana White Contender Series fight. He got a knockout in the 2nd round. And Jose Medina, he lost on the Contender Series, got spanked. But the fact that he didn't get finished, Dana White's like, come on back. Then he fights Zach Reese, gets spanked. Spanked for 3 rounds. Doesn't get finished again. The fact that he didn't get finished, now Dana White's like, you know what, we'll give you 1 more. We'll give you 1 more power puncher to make sure that you get dusted before your contract expires. And that's exactly what they did here. So, in theory, oh wow, this is a banger. Like, Ateba Gautier is going to get a knockout. Should be a cool highlight. But in actuality, Jose Medina has the chin of a god. And I just see this fight just being 3 rounds of just punching back and forth and nothing really happening. No getting wobbled, nothing. So, it's also taking place in Mexico, and they put Jose Medina on the Mexican card as the Mexican representative in this fight. So they're like, please, Jose, just do what you've been doing, get rocked for 3 rounds, don't get KO'd. Probably won't be the best viewing experience. Final fight I wanted to discuss. How can you not bring this up? How could any Cody Brundage fight that gets booked needs to have a solo YouTube video about it, because this guy is the face of low-level MMA in the UFC. It seems like every fight Cody Brundage is in ends in some kind of fugazi manner, whether he gets the DQ victory, whether it gets turned into a no contest, whether, you know, he's fighting Bo Nickel as a plus 2,000 underdog. It's just funny or whether he's getting a KO slam win against Zach Reese. Like, Cody Brundage fights always like have some kind of mystique about them that are make you be like, wow, this guy's, there's something wrong with this guy. And now he's fighting Julian Marquez, who basically quit MMA to become a corn star. And he's just, you know, a lot of injuries over his career. He got dusted by Zach Reese in less than 30 seconds in his last fight. Should be interesting considering both guys are notorious for getting chinned. And should be interesting considering both guys do have some type of wrestling that they can go back on. But the fact that this is in Vegas, this is in the Apex, this is the fight you should show people and be like, this is why the Apex is what it is. This is why people think of the Apex, how they think of it. Just show them Cody Brundage versus Julian Marquez. Thank you for getting to the end of another episode of Finn's Chats. I hope you enjoyed this one. Let me know in the comments what fight you're looking forward to the most in 2025. It can be booked. It cannot be booked. It can be a fantasy matchmaking. Let me know in the comments. Let's build the Finn's community. All right? Have a great rest of your day, you savage.